Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to Notes and welcome to the second video of our React.js series in which we will today write a simple project by using all the 5 features above, and I think I've already discussed that in my first video. And again, if you know the basic concepts of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, DOM, and some ES6 features like arrow functions, you guys can skip this video. But if somehow you want a refresher before jumping into React.js, so I think it's a good idea to go through this video to understand and have a refresher of all these topics. So let's get started. So today we will be building a simple project. Again, it will not be a complex one, which will be this counter application. Again, we will be having a heading of counter app and a counter and 2 buttons which will increment and decrement the count. Again, obviously it's not a complex one, it's just a simple application. And this application will include one about page link in which you can just it's just about page which will tell you that this is the counter app written in a traditional web application style. Okay, so it is a traditional web app. We will be using all these technologies like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and DOM to write this counter application. And if you want to go to home page, you can again click on this link. It will take you to this home page again. Okay, so today we will write this application from scratch and will understand that what are the fallbacks of writing front-end web applications with this traditional style, and we'll see that how React improves over this traditional web application style. Okay, so with that said, let's get started. Okay, so here you can see that I've opened my VS Code, and the folder I've created is traditional web app because we will be writing our first traditional web app, and I've opened that folder in my VS Code. So let's start the proceedings. So let me first create our index.html file. Again, the name doesn't matter, but it's a trend going on that the very first HTML file of your application should be index. So that's a trend we have to follow. Okay, so let me just first create our HTML5 boilerplate. So that's our boilerplate, and let me just now give the title to something like counter app. Okay, so in the body we will have some headings, and the very first heading will be something like, okay, not h2 but h1, and let's give it a heading of counter app. Okay, so that's the heading which will be displayed to tell you that what type of application we are working with. And let's go to heading number 2, and in heading number 2 obviously we will display the counter, which is by default it will be 0. Okay, and the third thing we have to do is that we have to display 2 buttons, one for increment and one for decrement. So I will wrap it in a div so that I can align them in a row with the help of flex. Okay, so it's my first button, and let me name this something like increment. Okay, sorry for my spellings, I'm usually not good with my spellings. Okay, so and let me go with decrement. So decrement. Okay, so you got the point. So one button for increment and one button for decrement. Okay, and after increment and decrement, I think I need something like a link to my about page. Okay, so let me just create a link, and this will be to my about.html, and obviously this doesn't exist right now. We will create this about.html page, and let me just name it something like about page. Okay, so this is the overall structure I think we need for building this application. It's just a simple one. Okay, so let me just save this thing, and let me just open this with our live server. And again, for you guys who don't know about live server is just extension. So let me just go to my extensions tab, and if I search for live server, so this is the extension I'm using. Okay, so you guys can easily go and install this live server extension. Then you can easily serve your applications right from your VS Code. Okay, so you can just right click, and then you will get this option open with live server. Okay, so let me just go back to my folder structure, and let's open the browser, which is our Google Chrome, and here you can see that we are getting the structure of our counter application. So I think here you have understood the power of HTML, which help us to display elements over a traditional web browser like Google Chrome. And the second thing we have to do is to just depending on your use case, you have to do some styling. So I will just give it a link, and just will write some small styles to just make it feel good. So let me just give it styles.css. So this will, this link tag will help us to connect this HTML with our CSS styles, and the file we will be looking with styles.css, and it will be in the same folder structure. So let's call it styles.css. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is to if you see that in our body tag we have to center this whole part in the center of our canvas. Okay, so what I can do is I can use our body as a reference and can use flex to display all the materials in the center. So I can come here, I can say that body, and let's say we will be displaying flex, and I will use flex direction as column, and I will go justify content center and align items to center. Okay, I think this should center applications right over here. And the next thing I have to do is to you can see that it is centered horizontally but not vertically, because we have not given the body the complete height of the web page. Okay, so I can say is that width is equals to 100 VH, which is sorry, VW, which is viewport width, so 100% of viewport width, and the height will go to 100% of viewport height. Okay, save this thing, and it will come right into the center of our application. Okay, center of our page. So till now everything looks fine, and I think by default we have margins of in our headings and in our paragraphs. So I think we have to remove the margin and padding from everywhere. Okay, so this is by default when you work with any CSS styling. So I can say star, and I can say that padding must be 0 pixels, and let's say margin by default will be 0 pixels. Okay, so I think this will remove everything you can see here from the default margin and paddings has been removed. Okay, so the next thing we have to do is to just increase the font of these headings. So I think these are smaller, so I can just, you can see that I'm only using H1 and H2, so I can target it something like this, that all the H1s can have a font size of, let's say 50 pixels. I think 40 pixels will be fine. And let's say the H2 will be having a font size of, let's say 35 pixels. Okay, save this thing, and let's see that if I'm doing something wrong here. Font size 40 and font size 30. Let's save this thing and refresh. Okay, so it's not working. So let me just, if I say it to 50 pixels, yeah, it's working now. 50 pixels, and let's give it 40 pixels. Okay, so 50 and 40, this looks pretty much good to me. Okay, and next thing we have to do is to just increase the padding for increment and decrement buttons, as well as the font size I think should be a little bit bigger. Okay, so I can say that the buttons should be having a padding of, let's say 10 pixels, and the font size of the buttons should be, let's say 25 pixels. Okay, so now it looks pretty much good to me. Okay, and the last one is about page. I think the link is fine. Again, it depends on your scenario if you want to style it. So this is the overall structure we have till now created. We have used HTML for displaying the elements and CSS for styling our elements. So this is the CSS styling we have used. Okay, now comes the JavaScript part. Now JavaScript part help us to collect these elements from our web page and help us to manipulate them according to our needs. Okay, so if I go to right click to inspect, this will open my Google Chrome developer tools, and here you can see the number of elements tab. In elements tab you can see the number of elements we are interacting with. Okay, so you can see that we are having our very first HTML tag, then we are having head tag. Inside our head we are having different attributes like link, like title, and all those stuff, and inside body we are having our main structure. And whenever you hover the mouse on a specific element, it will highlight in the browser as well. So this is our heading, this is our counter, this is our div. In the div we are having two different buttons, one is increment, one is decrement, and the last one is our about page link. Okay, so this is the overall developer console which we will be very much in the web development world. We have to spend a lot of time in developer console for debugging our application. So this is the structure. So let's write our JavaScript. Till now we are having no script, and you can see that this is there is a script edit right over here. And don't worry about this. This is the code injected by the live server. Okay, this is the live server which is injecting the code, the extension which we are using. So this is not written by us. So we will write our very first script for now. Okay. So we usually write JavaScript at the end of our body, nearly at the end of our body. Okay, so let's write our script, and let's say this will be our index.js, which will be our index.js file. Okay, so this is our JavaScript, and let's create this file. So let me call it index.js, and inside this we want to first time we have to do is to check that whether this index.js is properly linked with our HTML or not. So the very first thing we have to do is to alert something, maybe let's say hello world. Okay, save this thing, and the moment you save this thing, you can see that our counter application displays the alert of hello world, and when you press OK, the main application starts. Okay, so it means that our JavaScript is properly linked. Now the very first thing we have to do is to implement the basic functionality, which is that on the pressing of this increment button, we will increment our count, and on the pressing of decrement, we will decrement our count. Okay, so the very first thing we have to do is to implement two on-click handlers, one for increment and one for decrement. Okay, so let me just go to my index. I will define a function right over here, and we will call it increment counter. Okay, and the second function will be nearly about decrement counter. Okay, so these are the two functions, increment counter and decrement counter, and the moment we will increment our counter, we need to first grab the current value of the counter, and we can do that with the help of DOM. So this is the point where DOM gets into the picture, which is domain object model. Okay, so I can give it a ID. Let's say I need a ID, and let's say this is our counter. Okay, now the reason I'm giving this ID is because we need to tell to DOM that we need this specific element, and for getting this specific element we have to provide some ID to it, so that the DOM knows that this element h2 has the ID of counter, and by giving the same ID we can get the same element. Okay, so we can come to index.js again, which is our JavaScript, and here we can get the value. So let's say let value is equal to, we can use the document, which is the global object for our application. So document dot, we can use get element by ID, and we have to pass the same ID, which is counter, and then we can use the inner text. Okay, so what we have said is that we have told our document, which is our document object model main global object. Okay, so we have told our document to get element by ID. We are in, and the second thing we are doing is that we are passing that ID counter to our document, and then we are saying that once you get that element, give me the inner text of that element. Okay, so in our case the inner text will be something like 0. Okay, obviously 0 will be at the start of our application, and if you hover this inner text, you can see that it gives us a string value, obviously, and for increment our counter, we need to convert this string to integer so that we can increment the counter. So what we can do is we can just use, let's say that let we need to create another variable. So let me say let parsed value and equals to, we need to parse int. We can use a built-in function parse int, and then we have to provide the value. Okay, so what this will do is this value will be stored in here, which is again the value at the start of application will be 0, which will be in string. So value will be stored here, and then after that we will pass the value in parse int function, and this parse int function will convert this string value to integer value, and that will be stored in our parsed value. And then what we have to do is to just say parsed value plus plus, and then after increasing our counter parsed value plus plus, we have to again set this value to the document object model. Okay, so let me go back, and let's say we have to again get our element. So document dot get element by ID, and we can say that counter get the element which is having the ID of counter, and then we can say that the inner text, and this time we will use equal to operator, and we will equal to this to parsed value. And since parsed value at this point is an integer, okay, it is a integer at this point, so we have to convert this to a string. So let's say to string, and that's the overall thing we have to do. So let me just save this thing, and let's check this out. Okay, so again, for incrementing the counter, we have just declared the function, but we have not linked this function to our on-click handler, and on-click handler for specifically for this button increment. Okay, so what I can do is I can just give a ID to this button. Let's say inc increment and btn for button, okay, increment button. And then I can come to my index.js, and at the very let's say end of my application, or you can do it on the start, it depends on you. So I can say that is document dot get element by id, and this is incbt btn, which is the same id I have given to my increment button. Okay, so increment button, and then we can add a event listener. So dot add event listener, and this event listener function takes two attributes. Number one is the event type you want to pass. So we want a click event. We want to add event listener only when whenever the user clicks. Okay, and the second one is obviously it will be a function we have to pass, which will be called whenever the button is clicked. So we have already declared our function, which is this increment counter. So we can just pass this function right over here. Again, obviously we don't have to call the function because we are just passing it by reference, and whenever the user clicks on this button, the increment counter, this function will be called right over here. Okay, so let me just save this thing, and let me just go to my index.html. Let's see. Okay, everything looks good. So let's go to our browser, and if I increment this thing, you can see that the counter is getting incremented right over here, and it also shows the changes right over here. Okay, so we have done with our very first functionality, and let's move on to decrement. So the decrement scenarios remains the same. Let me just give it an ID of dec bt and decrement button, and the only thing we have to do is to just add a listener for this. So I will duplicate this line. I will say it is dec decrement button, and on click we will just call the decrement counter function, and the decrement counter function will remain same as like this. The only thing we have to do is to just, instead of increasing the value, we have to decrease the value. So it will again get the current counter, and then it will parse it to integer, and then it will decrement it, and again will display it on the application. Okay, so if I save this thing and I go to my application, refresh it, if I increment, it is incrementing, if I decrement, it is decrementing. So everything is working fine till now. So that's our application. So this looks fine till now. So it was just a refresher to the individuals who wanted to have a refresher over about HTML, JavaScript, CSS. So this is the overall tools we use to build a traditional web application. And again, it is not as much developer friendly as it should be. Okay, one thing I've missed here is the concept of ES6. Again, I will just write ES6 features, ES6 features, and ES6 features includes again the very first thing, which is the arrow functions. Arrow functions, and arrow functions are same like this, but we have a syntactical difference. Again, it is a difference in syntax. So let's say the arrow functions start something like with a const keyword, and then you have to give it a name, maybe something like, let's say, increment counter, and then we have to provide equal to sign, and then we will provide parenthesis. Inside this parenthesis we will provide the parameters which we want to pass into the function, and then we are having this arrow operator, and this arrow operator is equal to and then greater than sign, which again is something like an arrow operator, and then we can provide the curly brackets. So this is the concept of arrow functions. Again, you can write these same functions with the help of this arrow syntax, and JavaScript will not complain you. Okay, so let me, if I comment this thing out, and if I, let's say it like const and then increment counter, and let's call it equal to, and then here we will get a arrow operator. So you can see that everything is working fine, and we can use the same thing over here, decrement counter, and it will be equal to, and here we will have the greater than equal to and greater than operator, which is the arrow. Okay, so till now you can see that this is the concept which comes with the ES6 features, which are these arrow functions. Until now, if I again go to my browser, refresh, and you can see that everything is still working fine. Okay, so nothing has been changed. So this is the overall refresher to the application, traditional web app. So let's go to index.html, and I think we have one thing missed, that we have to create this about page. Okay, and the reason I'm using this link for creating an about page is because I want to show you a pretty much fallback, a very interesting fallback of using traditional web applications. Okay, so let's first create this about page. So let's call it about.html, and again I will get the HTML5 boilerplate, and let's say it's about page, and let me call with heading 1. Okay, this is this about page of the counter application. Okay, and I will use one link tag over here which will take us to go to home page, and again I will refer back to my index.html. Save this thing. Okay, so now if I go to my browser and I click on about page, so it will take me to my about page. This is the about page of the counter application, and if I click to go to home page, it will again take me to my home page. Now here, this is where the interesting part comes out. Okay, so bear with me. So if I go to network tab of my developer consoles, so here you can see that if I refresh this thing, you can see that whenever I refresh, I am hitting 4 different requests. Okay, so for now just ignore this WS request, just focus on these 3 requests. Okay, so in these 3 requests you can see that we are getting index.html, and if I click over this I can see the response of that request, and this is requesting from our server. Okay, so this is the server, and the server we are using is the live server. Okay, so whenever we are requesting index.html from live server, we are getting this response. Okay, the moment we get this response, the browser parse this HTML and see at line number 7 it sees, oh yeah, we are having a style sheet which is linked with this HTML. So what browser does is browser will fire another request which is this style.css, and it will say give me style.css. Then it will take this file style.css, and you can see that it is the same file which we are getting from our which we have written right now. Okay, so we are getting the same file, and then what happens is again it will move line by line, and then it will get to line number 20, and you can see that at line number 20 it is saying that we need an index.js. So again the browser will request for the file index.js, and this is the file which we have written right now. Okay, so it will provide us with that file. Now one of the fallbacks of using this approach is that whenever I will click on about page, this application will again request to live server for the about page details. Okay, so if I click on about page, you can see that everything has vanished. The only thing we have requested is about.html page, and again we are getting the response about.html, which is our this HTML page. Again, obviously don't worry about this script tag, it is only the code injected by the live server. So whenever we are navigating between pages, we are every time we are requesting our servers to serve different files. Okay, so if I go to my again VS Code, and let's say in about.html I am having a script. Okay, and this script is something like, let's say we can call it like about.js. Okay, and inside here I have to create about.js file, and here we can say that okay, we need something like maybe we can just alert something. Okay, this is about page. Okay, if I save this thing, you can see that again if the browser has detected that there is an alert, this is about page, and this time with the about.html file we are getting about.js file. Okay, and if I go to about.html, so when the browser has reached at line number 12, so it has seen that obviously yeah, there is one JavaScript file which is linked with this HTML file, so yes, request that file. Okay, so whenever it will see, it will request for about.js file, which will just give us a simple alert. So that's the overall picture of a traditional web application, and there is a one major fallback that for every page we have to file a request to our server. So in this way you can conclude that traditional web applications are somehow dependent on our server side. Okay, and if I come to my markdown and if I go to my traditional websites, so this is just a simple picture to show you that how traditional websites work. Okay, so at left side you can see is my client, and at right side you can see is my web server. Okay, so whenever we request some HTML file, it will send a request to our web server, and the server will serve the HTML file. And after serving the HTML file, we will resolve the HTML links, and that links can be styling links and JavaScript links. Obviously, if there is a request for JavaScript, it will again ask the server to serve that JavaScript file, and we will get that JavaScript file back. And somehow if the user navigates to another page within the domain, it means the same URL. If it is navigating to any other page, again we have to make a request for HTML file, and again that HTML file will be served, and again we will resolve that HTML links and will request the specific JavaScript file or the specific style sheet for that page. So this is one fallback of traditional web applications, that we are very much dependent on our web server. Now assume that for every page navigation you have to request files from web server, and web server will be serving you. So it means that a single user have to request for every page navigation. This is one of the fallback of traditional websites, that for everything, for every page navigation we have to request from the web servers. But in the case of React or single page applications, this does not happen, and we will come to this point when we will start working with React.js, that how React.js solves these types of issues. So that's the overall picture of today's video. I think it's gone too much lengthy. uh, for now I can just say that I will be uploading this code onto my GitHub repository, and the link to that repository will be in the description. You guys can just go on, clone it and tinker something with this application, change something, and see that how things are working with this application. In the coming on video we will start understanding that how React.js came into picture, and how React.js solve the issues which comes especially with the traditional web applications. Okay, so if you're liking my content, so do like and subscribe the channel. We will meet inshallah in our next video. Thanks for watching.